Ordinarily, when you market a game, you put your most flashy and exciting character on the front cover. That's because it's Business 101. Headline, put something that doesn't completely stink on the cover so we can hide all the stinky details inside. That way, they think the game is all cool people and not power creeple. Otherwise, you might give a false impression about your game and therefore your game design concepts. So this makes me wonder why the developers of Valve managed to make this walking oval-icular man who possesses the worst speed and mobility in the game with probably more weaknesses than strengths, the front and center character in Team Fortress 2. Maybe because he's an almighty meaning Chad class that millions of people see and think, damn, this is a good design. I'm going to buy this game. Wait, it's now free to play. Wow. Well, I'm here to stay. Oh wait, there goes Valve. Oh wait, the bots have invaded. Is TF2 dying 2021? And that's essentially a complete history of TF2 if anyone wanted it. Hello everyone, it's your favorite Apex Legends character here, apparently. Before we begin, I want to introduce the topic at hand. I have recently made this series of 7 videos on the Diablo 2 classes, trying to find the one that metaphorically buzzed the most proverbial bells. It was a lot of fun and I enjoyed the creative process where I'd sit and stare at a document and think of words that rhymed, typically of the it, uck, and variety. TF2 has 9 absolutely stacked, loaded, and well-designed characters, and if we're talking about finding the best class in Team Fortress 2, we have so many different concepts to pit against each other. We are beginning with the heavy weapons guy. That much is obvious at this point, but let's first talk about the criteria I will be using to determine which class is the best. For each class, I want to have 3 varieties of discussion. Of course, we have to talk about casual matchmaking ability, where I will talk about playstyles and variety of the class at hand, followed by the much more important Chad competitive viability. After that, we can have a stroll down man versus machine way, the premier PvE game mode, premier put into the biggest quotation marks I can find. I'm excluding a conversation about which class has the best personality, because that shit's up to you to decide who's best. They're all great, no wrong answers here. Unlike actually who's worth anything in combat. For anyone who isn't familiar with TF2, I'll give a rundown of the major ideas for all formats. Firstly, the game is primarily played casually, despite having a terrific balance for competitive game modes. Thanks for nothing, Valve. In casual, you can have teams of any size, players can come and go, and there's no class limits. This is essentially a playground where you can go completely ape shit and do anything you see fit, whether it be play good or play bad. Competitive is split into 2 major formats, those being 9v9 and 6v6. Each has so many rules that I don't want to get into, but essentially they both have similar feelings in terms of how you tackle them. In general, they put coordination and teamwork into play and rely on really good mechanical skills. Essentially, if you've never seen TF2 competitively played, don't worry about it. Just imagine it as an absolute stress test of the strengths and weaknesses of all the classes. Finally, man vs. machine is a fun time, joke time, silly, gambling-fueled alternative game mode to play where the objectives are PvP oriented. In general, this game is huge and offers hundreds of things to do. You can play in so many different ways that if we're going to discuss strictly how good the classes are against one another, I need to keep things very surface level. In the case of Heavy, he sits and looks at you with great confidence, certainly doesn't look like a dog-ass class. Before I give any kind of critique of Heavy's functionality or lack thereof, let's talk about general statistics and ideas. Firstly, the Heavy has the theoretically highest damaging weapon in the game. This is of course under the assumption that it's a tank in MVM and not a human with A eyes or B brain. At greater distances, the Heavy has some of the worst output of anyone, which is a damper when considering his overall strength. The great news is that at mid-range you upgrade from fuck all to shit all with a moderately minor increase in functionality.
So in other words, get in people's faces.
The otherwise uninteresting perks are that you possess the most health out of every class, but you have the worst movement speed. Even worse, you reduce that already bad movement speed even further when you actually want to fight something. So we have a large, slow character with terrible range and a severe case of grapefruit head. So in any way, does Heavy have a chance of contending for the best class in the game? There's a short, easy answer and a long, easy answer. Let's talk about equipment and playstyles. This is already a totally bad part about Heavy, but if you don't like his be slow and die strategy, you unfortunately don't have much way to opt out. The Heavy possesses 5 separate primary weapons, all of which are practically identical. You can rev the gun, you can shoot the gun, get some kills, die because your class sucks. I'm just kidding, you don't get kills. Unless you adopt the concept of wall usage, where you just hide and wait, really living up to that defense moniker. Let me break items down into 3 categories, primary, secondary, and melee. Who says I'm not creative? Let's see your series. This is why the concept of primary weapons with Heavy don't matter. It's because they don't matter. You have no great variation in how you tackle players. You can perform a jump rev around corners to surprise unwitting players and score a few easy kills, but that instantly puts you into the I'm going to die now position, so you can't exactly do that all day. Secondaries are all irrelevant because there's only one good one. You can use a shotgun, which is quite pointless since you are not a really good brawling character, again due to that hefty ass you're swinging in the enemy's face. Secondly, when the other option is a 100% healing item that you can give to other players when they're hurt, you don't really get a choice. So yes, run the sandwich, ignore these clod items, they're all worse sandwiches. This particularly ungood item offers you a separate melee-oriented playstyle, which lets you be the almighty Chad and wander into fights and slap people in their various parts. It's good. What? No, it's bad, not good, sad. Finally, melee is a weird one. Again, reiterating point number 1 for the 20th time, heavy is slow. At some point, it became the concept to give heavy melee weapons that sped them up, so you can run various things that let you get into the fray quicker. They all mostly suck now, killing you as you run. Still, it's a benefit if you want to reposition briefly or make a getaway. You have a few other utility ones, including this now trash option, which reduces range damage, or this one that RNG saves you if you get lucky. All in all, dull and dull. If you like or main heavy, it becomes apparent that you really need to like the I have no speed and I must die concept behind the class. The best weapon for heavy is walls, so enjoy that. Moving into casual matchmaking, where he actually has several benefits, namely that 90% of the player base is stupid. This greatly increases the concept that you'll be able to do things, which makes it seem like the class is fun and very strong. The negative aspect of casual is that any number of players could be playing your counters, namely the pick classes. In addition, you don't have that much health considering how big of a target you are, so unless some probably unaware medic player is helping you, you're going to be up fuck creek without a fuck. But when things work out and you roll some random crits and people generally just don't know what the heavy does, you will feel like an absolute Titanic man. Then we switch gears and discuss competitive TF2, which makes you feel less like a Titanic man and more like a Titanic ant with only your hefty ass as your main benefit. Competitive does not favor heavy, primarily because it's usually much more speed oriented. You're going to have one heavy in 9v9 as you need to represent every class, but in 6v6 you only see the guy when you need a last ditch effort where his thickness will prohibit the enemy from winning the game for about 3 seconds. Primary issues are being slow and super focusable, and since they have no way to deter people outside of killing them, you're going to experience the ground more often than not. It is all about quickness, and being named the heavy is a good visual indicator about how quick the guy is going to be. You might have great power up close, but when things like A, B, or C exist in this game, you'll quickly realize that heavy represents how you'll feel to your team. Still, in 9v9, he's obviously a sincere, important to the discussion at large, boat anchor, just with much more of an emphasis on keeping a wall under control than killing a lot of players. Part of the described combo with the medic and demo man, heavy really does become the line for your team's placement. When he's there, you'll feel good, because the one benefit is that you can't ignore the heavy if you're trying to accomplish anything. So he'll hold down the fort while you go off and die, then allowing him to die. It's about as fun as it sounds. Moving on to our last section with man versus machine, and randomly the heavy becomes the #1 greatest class in the game in this game mode. Fancy that, as soon as the enemy players start walking at you with no brain and never stop no matter what, you start picking up the pace. The upgrades in this game mode all give the heavy less suckage, which in turn gives atrocious amounts of damage output. Put him on the tank, it'll push him along, allowing him to sizzle things up a little bit. Additionally, since there's always a guaranteed medic in MVM, and oh yeah, the game mode is easy, how could I forget, the Lumpish Man truly does shine in this format. So if I had to give a score out of 10 for each category, I wouldn't, because that's far too objective for me. Me not think, me YouTube ape, ooh. Instead, I will offer a one-word summary of each game mode for the heavy weapons guy. Decent, dismal, disgusting. And akin to how I ran my Diablo 2 series, I'll offer a verdict on the class at the end of each video. So, does anyone actually expect that the heavy is the best class in Team Fortress 2? Because no, he loses, get out. So that's one down, the face of the game himself. How about next time we get this snake bastard out of the way?